All righty, we are live. Well,
Woohoo!
yay! My lovely co-host, Miss Sherry herself, over on Instagram as Step by Step or Step by Keto Step. Sorry,
And
but
I got my co-host over here, Becky, at I am Becky Niles.
welcome everyone. How are we on this lovely Monday night? I'm so excited that we're now able to get into a routine of doing our Mondays, and we kind of took a break there with Memorial Day in between our first one and our our live debut and this one. But how's everything going?
It's going good. You have a good Memorial weekend?
We did, yeah. My sister-in-law, we really didn't do much. Uh, hey Deb, um, my sister-in-law had her class reunion, so they were down, and we just kind of hung around, and yeah, didn't really do much.
Well, you had a big milestone, you and your husband.
Yes, our anniversary was just last Friday.
Happy
16 years.
anniversary.
Thank you. Yes, many more to come, but thank you for that. Yes.
Absolutely.
All righty. Now that I know we're live, because I see the comments coming in. So of course, tonight, if you've seen the description, we're going to discuss the public challenge that we have going right now. So we're sharing it all over our social media, Facebook, Instagram. I will share it here into the stream as well. So the BNC community, which for those of you that don't know, is our community that we have in conjunction with this YouTube channel, Healing the Whole Body podcast, is a branch of the BNC community. We have a full community of like-minded people who get together 6 times a week. We have 6 weekly meetings, go basically hitting these different areas. So this is our challenge that we have going. It is free to the public. Anyone can join us. You can end up and use, if you're on social media, use the hashtag BNC challenge. But each of these areas have a very important aspect when it comes to our whole body health and our healing. We've seen benefits to these, incorporating these areas into our routine. And the first one is sleep. So getting 7 to 9 hours a night. How
You
many
know,
hours do you average, Sherry?
I was going to say when I first got started in, the community and the keto space and the carnivore space. And about 19 months ago, I mean, that was one of the first few things I heard about with sleep. And I remember thinking that how do people sleep? Like I can't even fall asleep. I can't stay asleep. Like, how am I ever going to get 7 to 9 hours per night? Like that was such a foreign concept to me.
Absolutely. And I get what you're saying. With having my hysterectomy, I was getting night sweats and, hot flashes through the night, feeling like I was just, and plus the insomnia that comes with, hormonal dysregulation. Um, but it wasn't only just the quality or the quantity of sleep, but the quality of sleep is really, ultimately what we end up and look at the further we get into our health journey. But first, for many, they are just burning the candle at both ends and they're not getting that amount of sleep. So there's a lot of health and healing that comes when we balance our sleep, to reversing leptin resistance, because we have to have this good quality sleep in order for the leptin to end up in dock at night. So, which also takes, balancing the cortisol and the insulin as well, which kind of leads into this next one of managing stress, which is important. People are like, oh, I'm not stressed, I have a laid back life, but that they don't look at all the different stressors in their lives, fasting and exercise and work and, physical stress, emotional stress. it all runs this whole gamut when it comes to our health. And so there are things that can help with that. Meditation, mental imaging, imagery, and daily breath work. And I know you've had amazing success with doing the BNC breath work meeting, in what it's helped you with, Sherry.
Oh, absolutely. So I've been wearing CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, for the last couple weeks, um, because I'm in the process of reversing my type 2 diabetes. So it's important I know the numbers, which we won't even get into the stubborn fact that I was too stubborn to even put one on for months and months, having the CGM in my closet. Well, I finally did it. And so, um, couple weeks ago, the first time I did a breath work, I checked what my glucose was before we started. About 30 minutes into it, my glucose on breathing went down 10 points. And then another 15 minutes later, it went down 14 points. And at the time, that was when I went to bed that night, it was the lowest number I had seen going to bed, even breath work.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the overall health benefit. I mean, that's just on the glucose aspect of what it's doing. And, to end up and balance the glucose like that and decrease it also, that you're balancing the cortisol. Um, and when we balance the cortisol, that also helps with the insulin, which again is kind of leaning into this next. Like I said, they all are intertwined. So these all link together. And balancing the insulin comes with the nutrition side of things and what we're putting in our mouth, not eating, an insulin carb processed food, type lifestyle. So doing more of like keto, ketovore, carnivore, we're definitely not dogmatic when it comes to the BNC community. We have people anywhere from ketovore clear over to carnivore. And some people, kind of gravitate through that and vary. I know I do it more on a seasonal approach. So, I may have a few more carbs during the summertime when things are more available seasonally. But I know you've kind of been playing with how many carbs you have and what you're incorporating and going even more towards the carnivore right now, and decreasing that as well.
Yeah, I'm basically living the carnivore lifestyle right now. And I went to the point that there's even no dairy going into my mouth. No nuts. It is basically meat. I eat meat. And it's been interesting because not only do I eat meat, but I eat fat. So my protein and my fat are higher. I might at the most in a day get maybe 10 grams of carbs, and we know those are natural carbs coming from the fats and the meats. And if I do have guacamole, so that the little cup that I have has 5 carbs in it, but it's good fat. So I am getting that in. So that's been a huge transition. And I'm actually working to get this diabetes reversed. And so that's one of the things that, I'm diving pretty head deep into for quite some time now.
Which has had great benefits so far of doing it. I mean, you've been able to come off another one of your medications. I don't know if you want to speak to that or save that for its own.
Well, we can talk about it another time too, but yeah. So uh Friday
Mm-hmm.
Friday, yeah, was the last day I took my metformin. I was on 500 milligrams in the morning. Thank you, thank you. And I am now off. And so Saturday, Sunday, and today's Monday. So 3 days in. And no metformin. But it's interesting, and we'll talk about this, what that's doing when I go outside to ground and get the sunlight.
Yep. Yep. We'll end up and we'll put that in the
Yep.
outside and the movement section. The one thing I do want to mention real quick with the coming off the metformin, it wasn't something that you did yourself or that you just instantly stopped. You are working with a practitioner in regards of decreasing that, and it was actually him that took you off of it
That
because
is
of what
correct.
your numbers and everything we're doing in relationship to doing what we've discussed this far.
Yeah, yeah, he's taken me off of that, and I've been off of my blood pressure meds for a week and a day now too. So all per him, and I mean, let me tell you, him and I talk weekly. We go over everything. He's very meticulous with me about how I'm doing this. And again, this is all through a doctor. I'm not trying to do this on my own, but
Yeah.
he's the one that's got me doing pretty much hardcore carnivore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just didn't want any of our viewers to think that
No,
this was to be labeled as medical advice or the
no.
okay for them to come off of it themselves. So you are working with practitioner, but this is when we work on these fundamental areas that we're putting forth in this challenge. These are things that are possible. These are things that can end up and be done when we put in the work.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of leads into the next one, which is the fasting. And I know he has you doing a little bit more of the fasting, but for some people, and I just got off one of the BNC meetings prior to doing this, me and one of our another hosts, Sly, which is in the chat, we kind of tag team that meeting. But one of the things that we end up when we do is the fat fasting, but he has you doing like regular fasting as well,
Mhm.
or increasing the intermittent fasting. And so that is one beneficial thing. And if cortisol is a stressor for you, or you lack the energy in a regular fast, you can do a bridge fast or a fat fast.
Mhm.
That's going to end up and provide you the energy. But it is one of those things that can um, you know be beneficial, and it can be another tool in your tool belt of adding the fasting in there. And within this challenge, you will notice that we put at least just two. um, when we end up when we do more than that, whether it's a water fast or a fat fast, if we're not working on these other prior steps, our stress, again, going back to the hormetic stressor, it can create and kind of backfire on us if we end up when we overdo a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny because, I see people using fast as a punishment. When, oh, I went off, I ate bad today. Now tomorrow I'm gonna fast. And it's like fasting is not a punishment. That I feel for those people when I see that in the carnivore keto space. It's in the fasting space. It's like, no, or they jump in too fast and try to do too many hours at once.
Mm-hmm.
You got to work up to that. I mean, I'm probably at about 16, 18, 20 hour fast most days. Um, because I cut my eating window off by at least 5, 6 o'clock at night. And then I don't eat anything until 10, 11 o'clock, even 12 the next morning. And the doctor, the practitioner that I'm, uh, working with, um, he's really pushing me to, you don't eat if you're not hungry. And you have to stop and think in the morning. It's like you get up and it's like, well, I ate breakfast before. Do I eat breakfast now? Or, oh, I ate I'm not hungry for dinner. I had a later lunch. So you have to really stop and recognize. I'm here visiting my parents in Indiana last week and this week. And I've been kind of gently helping my mother, eat a little better. But one of the things when I see her going into the kitchen, I'm like, are you really hungry? And she'll stop and she'll go, no, I don't know. And I'm like, okay. So, well, why don't you get some water to drink? And, let's go in this room and, do something. And so, um, she realizes that she's not hungry. She's bored.
Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of people are, and especially if they're watching TV, because almost every commercial has food in it. Um, and so a lot of times it is just being bored, which again kind of leads into, getting outside, getting proper circadian rhythm, getting some movement in there, going and, like you said, grounding, walking, seeing the sunrise, sitting outside and listening and being present in nature, just in general, has tremendous benefits when it ends up comes to our health. And I mean, that whole topic in and of itself, I could go on forever. So I will let you speak to your benefits that you are seeing in regards of going outside and grounding.
Absolutely. So, I go out in the morning and ground, and get that morning light. No sunglasses. I walk around the yard barefoot, and touching the plants. I'm, just soaking it in. I get about 10 minutes or so in the morning, nothing too crazy. But by the afternoon, I'm back out there again. So what I'm building up to is I'm trying to get 40 minutes in a day of sunlight and grounding. And since I have been purposely, and it was really one of your classes that you had, Becky, that you showed us the research that's been done about getting 30 to 40 minutes of outside sunlight and grounding,
Mm-hmm.
and the benefits, and I'll let you jump in on that part, was eye-opening to the point that ever since then, that is one of my goals that I do. And I've actually had probably, I think yesterday I had probably easily, I was sitting outside with a girlfriend talking. So that was a couple of hours worth. And today I've had probably 60 minutes.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is a lot of benefits when it comes to grounding. Anywhere from our blood circulation to our inflammation. Just and grounding happens instantaneous, but it is a cumulative effect. So if all you have is 5 minutes of getting outside, also the different conductive surfaces, whether it's sand, soil, rocks, um, swimming, in the ocean, sitting on the beach for people. It really does have tremendous benefits when it comes to also helping, kind of to go back to that sleep aspect. It will help with our sleep. It helps with resetting the circadian rhythm because of the magnetic field of the earth. It helps with healing as well. So it can accelerate healing. Um, but again, it just really kind of takes us back to a lot of those ancient practices that were beneficial before we became such the modernized society that we are. I mean, obviously we live in 2023, so we can't go back to then, but we still have a lot of these practices that we've just disconnected with. So if we end up and reconnect with those, we will end up and see a lot of our metabolic dysfunctions that we have right now reversing as well. So anywhere from the type 2 diabetes to mental health issues, even people just going outside and the benefits that they get from connecting to earth and being present out there. Like I said, of course, that kind of ties into the movement too. For many people, just walking, moving, cardio is a stress reliever. So it helps to reduce that stress as well as either resistance or weights. And I know you've kind of gotten into lifting the weights here recently too.
Yeah, yeah. My husband, well, we had a treadmill and I was doing pretty good walking the treadmill every day until my foot decided to give out. And we we had went to KetoCon in Austin back in the end of April. And one of the things that I kept hearing very regularly there was lifting weights, right? And what the benefit it does to your hormones and things like that. And my husband was with me and we came home and he ordered a weight bench and weights. And we call it LHC, lift heavy crap. But we're definitely lifting like, and we're pushing it. And even that alone has, both of us have seen benefits on that. It was just kind of crazy getting into that. Now, since I've been here last week and this week, my parents, obviously, they don't have weights. So I'm back to walking. So I'm close to 2 miles in 45 minutes at this point. So bless you. But yeah, so, but there's still some days where I'm just so busy I can't get it in, and that's okay. um if I'm even doing every other day, I feel good about it, right? Because I'm still
Hmm.
out there daily grounding and getting the sunshine. And um it has all played a big role in my healing, even to the point that some of the chronic pains that I have in my shoulder and my arm, and for the how many months, Becky, did I tell you
Hmm.
that my fingers kept going numb? And I would see chiropractors and acupuncturists, and I was all over the place with that stuff, and nothing was letting up until, right, I started grounding. And you know and we'll talk about the fat as well. And it's I've noticed that the pain level in my joints and things like that, um, it's almost non-existent at this point.
Which is amazing because many people, when they end up and they start lifting, they will get, the aches and pains and the discomfort. And that's one of the things that we end up when we notice when people start to incorporate, the grounding in conjunction with doing more of like the resistance and the weights is the recovery time is, cut in half if at totally, um just because of incorporating some of these fundamentals. So of course then hydration as well, getting proper hydration, making sure you're getting the electrolytes, just because there's a difference also in the body of the hydration that we're taking in through our mouth and consuming, and the fourth phase water within the exclusion zone water, which we also build up with that grounding as well. And doing, a few of these other practices like sunrise, getting that red light on the skin, getting even the UVA. And, there's key times of the day. And that's one of the things that we touch on in the intuitive steps meeting on Wednesday nights in the community, is these different aspects that are beneficial to stack together. So, um, but yeah, and of course, again, like I said, the support, if you want to go beyond just this public challenge, we welcome you to the community, and stay tuned to the end of the live, because I will give you a code for a discount for joining the community. Um, but meanwhile, like you said, I'm going to remove this challenge. So this is posted real quick before I do. This is posted on Facebook. It's posted by many of us on Instagram. Feel free to share it. Feel free to tag, BNC challenge, and join in with us and let us know how it goes. But I am going to remove that because you had made a really good point in regards of the nutrition and what you are seeing in adjusting your macros, and the benefits of shifting those a little bit, especially with going carnivore, and pulling those carbs out. The difference that you have seen.
Oh my goodness. Well, one tip you gave me, I don't even know how many months ago, when we were talking about sleep, was you said, take a tablespoon of butter and eat it before you go to bed. I remember thinking, okay, Becky, you've done lost your mind, girl. And like, what? I'm going to eat a pat of butter, just eat it and go to bed. I'm like, all right, Becky's been right so far. So let's just play. I'll play the game right now. Oh my goodness. Do I sleep good? I thought I slept good with wearing the different blocker glasses, and this one's just the blue blocker. I also have the yellow and the red. The red alone can put me in a state of like I've taken a drug and have to like I'm like, oh, I gotta go to sleep. But the butter on top of it, the fat, right, that I add, oh my goodness. And you know what it does not do? It does not affect my glucose. Now, again, you would have to test. Everybody's individual, but it doesn't affect my glucose whatsoever. And I sleep good. So you want to talk to them about what that's doing?
Yeah. So I know. I laugh because it the amount of times in coaching sessions and meetings that I have been, brought this up in regards of the benefits of fat and especially fat before bed. And people look at me like I'm, some alien that has two heads out here. They're like, you want me to do what? You want what? Um, but yes, by taking that little bit of fat before bed, it ends up and it helps to calm the cortisol. We can't have melatonin and cortisol end up and oppose each other. So we don't get, melatonin to rise, which is what helps us to fall asleep. We have to have the melatonin production, which actually, again, starts in the morning. So when you end up and you see sunrise and you start to end up and bank, when you see that red light, it helps you to bank the melatonin. But cortisol is, stimulated in the morning. So when we have elevated cortisol, the melatonin is suppressed. But when you end up and you take that butter, it helps to calm that body. It calms that cortisol. It calms the fight and flight so that the melatonin can take over, which helps you to get to sleep, which when you end up and you have the elevation of the melatonin, it helps also with getting that quality sleep before midnight so that you are getting those deeper sleep cycles. So you're not only getting, laying in bed, getting the quantity of sleep, but you're actually falling asleep and you're getting that proper quality sleep and getting into those deeper sleep cycles. So yes, it does end up and have benefit. And many people don't have to, continue it forever. As they work on these other areas, it is one of those things that does help them to kind of transition. But the more that you are consistent, seeing sunrise, getting to bed at a consistent time and, keeping that, the body will realign and it will start to gradually gravitate towards that. And then people can start to pull that butter out of there. But for many people, also it is good for glucose as well when they end up and they have it prior to bed. So
Yeah, I'm seeing my numbers are definitely going down with it. And we so I'm in menopause, and I know there's a whole thing with that as well. But the when I have higher fat with not as high protein, I know some people out in the space talk about getting a gram of protein per your ideal body weight. I find personally I do better with that lower, which is about zero point 0.5 to like 0.8 of my ideal, a gram per ideal weight. So I'm running about 70, maybe 80 um, grams of protein, but I'm hitting about 101 fats. And that's where, the butter comes in, and the avocado and the good fats, using the different good healthy the come on, olive
avocado
oil.
oil, olive
Yeah.
oil.
Yeah.
I know I used my whipped tallow bites. I just ended up and made some the other day again,
Hmm.
because I'm doing, like I said, the fat fast, as part of this challenge instead of doing the regular fast, just because I do have a lot of stress that happens in my day. Um, I will I'll utilize the fat fast instead of traditional fasting, but I may throw a few in there because ideally, like you said, with your fasting, you don't do, a rigid 16/8, all the time. You maybe do 16, you do 18. I personally eat earlier in the day, so my fasting comes at the end of the day. But there is benefit in doing a varied part of the fasting as well. So some days I may be done eating at, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Other days I may eat at, 3, 4 o'clock. It just varies, and it may vary as far as whether I do, a 24-hour fat fast or I push it to 36. Just depends how it falls. But there is a lot of benefit when people are leptin resistant and insulin resistant in getting adequate protein. Now, you had kind of gave a range in regards of your protein. And I know when you're at home and you're lifting weights with your husband, you increase that protein as well.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. While I'm here and at my parents right now, I'm kind of keeping it down. Again, I just do better with the higher fat, lower protein approach, and of course, maybe 10 grams of carbs at the. I mean, I'm just 12. I mean, now I do track, and I know a lot of people in the space say, "Oh, you don't have to track." But I kind of disagree with it because tracking, I know what I'm doing. I know what the macros are. And it's helped me out a lot to see um how I'm reacting to the certain macros that are set out for me, the different levels. And when things are off, when I was flexing, right, and I could see what I was doing and how much carbs and fat and so forth I was, and protein I was getting on those days. um Obviously my glucose just couldn't handle a flex. um how would we know this if you're just not tracking things?
Exactly. Yep. And for some people, tracking is a stressor, and I get that. It's second nature to me.
Mm.
I've been doing it since 2014. Was the very first time that I had ever logged into my fitness pal. So, it's second nature to me. It's not a stress. It's
Mhm.
just part of, my lifestyle. And I get for some, they don't want to have to track, and that's okay. But like you said, if something stops working or something, isn't working, how do you know what to adjust? How do you know?
Right.
And that's where maybe people can end up and track, even short term.
Mhm.
But then you start to really kind of get into this gray area where, oh, I'm just having a little bit, or I'm just having, and a little bit turns into more, and oh, it's just a little bit more. And, before you know it, you're completely, above where you thought you were.
Right. I mean, like, and I don't know if my best friend, I don't know if she's on here now, but I'm about to throw her under the bus. So that's what best friends do, right? So we were talking yesterday, and she says, "Well, I believe she said a Granny Smith apple, and that's not as bad." And I'm thinking, but you don't know because you don't check your glucose, and you don't know what kind of a response you're getting from that. um but I not just from her, but I've heard that from other people. Well, I had a bite of that and that didn't hurt anything. Mm. And
But
I
did
was like,
it?
oh, be careful, like, oh,
I always, and I don't remember where or who I got it from, but the BLTs, the bites, the lick, the taste,
yeah,
they all end up and they add up.
they do. And if you think about it, Becky, I don't know about you, but when I'm cooking, how many licks do you do accidentally that you just don't even think about?
Well, I was gonna say
It's on my
that's
finger, lick, and then wash my hands. You know, it's like, what is
yep,
that?
yep, yep. And depending what it is, I I really noticed it the other day when I was making my whipped tallow bites, because I was like cleaning where I spilled, and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, not that it, bothering me at all to end up and have a little extra fat that morning, but it was just, if it was something else,
Right.
and like you said, with your friend and the Granny Smith apple, I did have a coaching client that was in, another space that was for another gal, and that was one of her wintertime foods or fall time foods was an apple. And I said, well, you may end up and want to look at that. And she's like, well, but if I end up and I bake it, or, and she was trying to justify keeping it in there. And I said, I'll make a deal with you. Just give it a week, take it out for a week and see how you feel and see how you do. And she noticed the difference. So it does make a difference. I'm not saying
Mhm.
that, an apple is bad. Just end up and be mindful when you're having the apple. If it's something that you're having every day and your goal is to end up and be in ketosis, it could end up and be the problem.
Right. Or you're trying to reverse you know, a medical issue that you're having or something like that. You know, what is it? A banana. And it's like, well, but but you get potassium. And it's like, but there's, an avocado is actually better at getting more potassium than a banana. Um, but we've been fed the wrong information for so many
Mm-hmm.
years that we don't think about it. I know there's one lady that I know, and I think you know her too, Becky. She has a hard time staying away from fruit, and I think they have a lot that grow around
Mm-hmm.
there, and she, poor thing's always battling her fruit. She just can't. And so it was interesting. And I know one of the things that you've taught and you teach is the growing season and when it's appropriate to eat these things. And, it's like one of the things, like in Texas, we've got tomatoes growing, like we're eating tomatoes. I'm here in Indiana, and these plants are still, people are just still getting stuff in the ground. Like these plants maybe have a bud on it, but nothing's happening yet. So, and I said to Becky, well, where am I eating that? I'm eating carnivore, right? So it doesn't matter. But it was still like, it was interesting to me to think about that with a person that travels. Like, how do you eat? How do you do that?
Yeah, and that's where I would end up, telling them that unless, like, I know you were going to your parents for 2 weeks, so that would end up to
Mhm.
be a little bit different. Someone that's, just going for 3, 4 days, don't necessarily eat at that place because it's not enough time for the gut microbiome to end up and, fully change over your body to adapt to that, latitude of circadian rhythm. Because it is, you're right, our growing seasons change, because I'm like in between, Texas and Indiana as far as, what I have growing outside right now. Because I just went out Sunday and cut a bunch of lettuce, and lettuce is one of your first things that you're getting as far as gardens grow. I mean, my zucchini and squash and, cucumbers are all growing, but I don't have any, fruit actually set on right now. And so, yeah, it does make a difference. And I know, a friend of ours down in Texas he's had all sorts of zucchini and all sorts of things that, he's pulled out
Yeah.
of the garden. So it does make a difference. But yes, as if you're just going somewhere for a short time, you don't necessarily change what you're eating, as far as the foods available based off, because one, the UV is different, the timing, circadian timing is a little bit different, just because of the angle of the sun and that whole thing. Like I said, that could be a whole night long podcast, but it does
Right.
make a difference based
Yeah.
on seasonal things.
Yeah, well, I always think of it this way. It's like, well, my grandparents and my great grandparents, They certainly weren't eating the things that we can walk into the grocery store and get. And if you think of it that way, it's like, oh, it's a different, they ate what was in season, and then when it was out of season, they didn't eat it. I mean,
Yep. Or you harvest it and preserve it somehow, whether you are
right.
fermenting it or, something along those lines. And that's one of the things, come wintertime, or I should say fall time, that I will end up having, even like some sauerkraut or some pickles or, something like that. But yeah,
Mhm.
predominantly during the wintertime, I do transition back to more of a meat animal based carnivore, whatever label you want to end up and put on it, just because there are a lot of things out of season. So, and I'm in the middle of Nebraska, so for me to go and get a mango or a pineapple or passion fruit or something along those lines 24/7 at a grocery store, when I can't even walk outside my door, and get those naturally, it's just not, logical to end
Right.
up and consume them. My body, one, because the food code, the light code that we get from that food is a lot different than what our body is perceiving in the environment.
I
So
mean, that's one of the things you teach in, which night is it do you teach?
intuitive steps is on Wednesday.
Yeah. And your heads might be spinning right now thinking, what is all that? Becky goes into some great detail on this. Like she gets a little more deeper, and you can understand exactly why. And it's been very interesting to learn. Um, but I just I can't even stress enough what a difference it has made on me alone, with just plain feeling better, reversing my diabetes, my cortisol, sleeping. I mean, I could go on and on. um and yeah, I mean, it's like I want to stand and scream from the rooftops, like, because I wish people could get it, right? I wish
Mm-hmm.
that, um don't stay inside. Like, I know you're working, but there's no reason why you can't get up and walk outside for 5 minutes, right? People take smoke breaks. You can go out and take a 5 minute sun break, right? Just
Yep.
yeah.
Well, and even the people that like I had a gal ask me today, why is it better to why am I not getting the benefit of natural light through the windows, and why can't I end up in if I'm getting the natural light just be inside? Well, a lot of the light that it doesn't the beneficial light rays doesn't come through the windows. It ends up, refracting it, and we have double pane windows, triple pane windows. I have, my window cracked open in the office because the light will come through. But just getting outside, there's so many more benefits. It's one of those good, better, best scenarios, right? If you're stuck in an office, hopefully you have a window, you can open the window. So you still, are getting kind of it's like okay, good. But getting up, moving, I mean, being sedentary at our desk all day long is harmful to our health in and of itself, but just getting up and being able to take those 5 minutes, or maybe you take your lunch break, and instead of sitting in the lunchroom with the lunchroom gossip, you end up and you go outside. Take your lunch outside. Everyone gets a lunch break. Many people are just pushed through. They don't want to end up and take it. They don't want to, and just do it. Driving to and from work, roll down your window. If you have a sunroof, open your sunroof. It doesn't have to be, both windows completely down, like Sherry was just showing you, a little
Yeah.
crack
Yeah.
has benefit. So just those small little habits to get in, get in the habit of, does truly end up and make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been crazy how much incorporating, because I mean, I was at a stall for what, 9 months, I mean, nothing. It didn't matter. My food was meticulous. What was lacking was the grounding, the sunlight, the fat, the movement. Um, I was lacking all that. And when I started incorporating that, the breath work, all of that, wearing the blue blockers, um, it things started moving. In fact, in the last 3 weeks, I've taken off. Hold on, let me do math in my head real quick. 5 inches off my waist. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
5 inches
Proud
off
of
my waist.
you.
Huh?
I am proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know what I weigh right now because the doctor's having me weigh myself every week, but I can't while I'm at my parents'. So we'll be curious to see when I get back home what that will actually be. But and that was one thing I completely avoid is that scale because, right? Remember, I'm lifting weights. And so if you Google what a pound of fat looks like side by side with a pound of muscle, the fat takes up way more area and then the muscle takes up this much. And so when you're looking at it, well, the scale didn't move, but you gained more muscle than you did that fluffy fat. So you're decreasing in inches, but the scale's not moving. So be real careful with that scale and be holding to it.
Which is where a lot of people end up and put most of their cards is in the scale. And that's one of the reasons why I've always encouraged people to take the pictures and to take the measurements is
Yep.
because, like you said, a pound is a pound. So it doesn't matter whether you've lost, 20 pounds and you've gained 5 pounds of muscle. The scale is only going to end up and show, a 15-pound loss. It's not going to end up and truly show what's going on unless, of course, you have like one of the in-body scans or DEXA scans or, something like that. But when you're doing the measurements, you can end up and tell, like you said, you've lost 5 inches. That's amazing. That's huge. That's a lot of, area that those fat cells were taking up that you have decreased, and a lot of inflammation as well. Like you said,
Yes.
there's, your body is definitely feeling better in regards of the
Yeah.
inflammation in the joint
Well,
pain.
yeah, and I think eliminating the nuts and the dairy has contributed to a lot of that inflammation and bloating that I didn't know that I had. And I'll be honest, I was using cheese as a source of actual protein. Like I would eat several slices of cheese and go, oh, well, that was 10 grams of protein, and I would track it, right? And now that it's eliminated, it's funny how that inflammation has gone down and I has to be contributing to not having joint pain as well,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And not having cravings or feeling like, you're always hungry too, because in the cheese there's casomorphins. So the little bit of casomorphins that are in the cheese light up those same receptors as sugar does. So for many people that will end up and lead to cravings as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I mean, when I'm allowed to add it back in, I know that it's going to be very minimal,
Mm-hmm.
very minimal. But I'm okay without it. And I realize this is so funny. I was cold brew aholic. I made cold brew coffee all the time and heavy whipping cream. And when that got removed from my choices, I realized I didn't really care for coffee that much. And you know what? I don't miss it. So that was kind of eye opening too.
Yeah. How we end up craving something and it's really not the beverage that we're craving. It's probably the habit that you were in of having something, not necessarily that you needed the coffee, but just the fact of you were in the habit of having it. So.
Yeah. So now I drink unsweetened tea, right? Okay. Or water with my, electrolytes in it. It's simple as salt. I'm happy with just putting salt in my water now. And I know you have a whole litany of fixing your drinks in the morning, Becky.
Well, it's just easier for me because of my household and what I've got going all day. The little bit of time that is what I call me time in the morning, I get up and I do kind of my morning routine, and it part of that is getting my hydration down. And I prepare it for the day. So I do my mineral resin, which is Shilajit, which is a mineral compound resin. And then I end up with my electrolyte water. I have herbal tea. I have hydrogen water because there's a lot of benefits to hydrogen water as well when it comes to the body, and the fourth phase water and the antioxidant. And I mean, there's thousands of studies out there in regards of hydrogen water. But I prepare it. And my doTERRA water is what I call it. But usually I will have some type of citrus oil in my water, and that is one of our other meetings that we have on BNC is the aromatherapy, where I go into teaching people the benefits of using oils, whether it's aromatically, topically, or internally as well. But I end up in it is one of the other things that I do first thing in the morning also. So, and I've replaced my coffee with the Shilajit. So, I'm getting those minerals and building that up, because minerals are also conductors of the electrons that we're gaining from the grounding. So when we look at, electrolytes and minerals and, we need it, our body needs those minerals to end up and move them freely throughout the body. So having those is beneficial, and that's, like I said, why I have the whole gamut of what I prepare in the morning. Is it's just easier for me than preparing it cup by cup throughout the day.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And I've been kind of starting to do that as well, just so I know that I'm getting through it throughout the day, right? But yeah, it's interesting. It's been an interesting journey and very eye-opening journey, one that I never will go back. I will never, and that's the alternative. I always say that over and over again. It's like I got two choices. I can keep pushing through and working hard and doing this, or I can go right back to eating the processed foods and the carbs and the sugars and the, whatever it is I want. And the doctors are going to go, sure, Sherry, here you go. Have another pill, have another pill, have another pill. And, that's not the alternative anymore. The alternative is to heal my body, reverse my type 2 diabetes, and be med free. And of course, as a byproduct, release weight, right? We all want that. But the big thing is to get healthy. I have to. I don't want to be an older person and not even be able to stand up or pull yourself up out of a chair because I don't have muscle mass enough to do that. Too many of our elderly are in that boat, and it's very tragic to see that. And so I'm starting now. So when I get there, my kids aren't going,
Yep.
let's put mom in a nursing home because she can't even stand on her own.
Which, like you said, is one of the reasons why we've, not only started to do this podcast, is to discuss these areas that end up, talking about our whole body as a whole, and our health and our healing. But we've also created the community which is what I will put on the screen here. So for anyone, that wants to join the community and, carry this conversation amongst many other, have a guided breath work to help you get into, that parasympathetic, tap into that. Of course, all of our meetings are recorded. So we have mental health, we have brain body health, we have general wellness, we have the intuitive steps, aromatherapy, and breath work, all within the BNC community. And if you use the coupon code YouTube, it will end up and save you. It'll give you a discount. So definitely, I look forward to carrying on our conversations in this podcast and just opening up the real talk that ends up and needs to happen amongst people of there is something that they can do and there is hope. We hear it several times within our meeting of where people didn't know where to turn. People didn't know that they could feel, better and not have to take the pharmaceutical medications, like you said, take your metformin and, continue on that path that they were on. But they can also get support. So.
And community is a big component as well. Especially if you're the only person in your family that's, which I was for a very long time, was, eating the way I was eating, and everybody else around me was not eating like I was eating, and they couldn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. And, it became this whole, well, can't you just splurge? Why can't you just, it's like, well, because I'm not. And that was my husband. I'll throw him under the bus too. Boy, I'm on a roll tonight, aren't I? Throwing people under the bus.
But I agree, because mine, my family was the same way, and having someone around and having someone in your court, even if it is, virtually and in the meetings, many of us were just virtual friends prior to, meeting in real life. And one of those, I have brought on as a host. She lives, half a country away from me. And so never, discount it that just because you meet people within these communities that they won't become real life friends. We all, especially now that we're able to travel. And I know several of you met up, at KetoCon, and it was like, long lost friends that, you never lost that step. So even though right now that community is a virtual community, in real life, those same emotions and support carries on. So.
Absolutely. Well, I hope everyone takes advantage of that code, because if you're just at least doing the nutrition part, and you're kind of, it's not quite enough and it, you probably need to look at the whole body. And that's what the BNC community is, it's beyond, right, nutrition.
Yep.
So at least check it out. Again, who knew all this? But when I put all those keys together, things started really changing for me. And I think they did for you too, Becky.
Absolutely. Because I was carnivore well before I ever started the, intuitive step side of things, or, the beyond nutrition side of things. I like many, just looked at nutrition. And once I looked beyond that, wow, things, really ended up and started to change, started to progress, started to really fall in alignment with each other. And I just get very passionate about it because of the benefits that I've seen. And I look to, carry those on to others. And yeah, I appreciate everyone that has hung out, and I see the comments coming through the chat. A lot of support to you as well for the success that you have seen, Sherry.
Thank you.
So I appreciate everyone. And like we said before, we are now back into every Monday night. So every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central Time, we will go live on our YouTube. So catch us here on the Healing the Whole Body podcast. And I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, good seeing you, Becky.
Awesome. You too. And have a wonderful rest of the week at your parents'.
Absolutely. And we'll see everybody next Monday night.
Bye, YouTube fam.
Bye.